Derek Remitz here, pro staff member of Mega Custom Tackle. I'm just going to show you a few things about the new Signature Series football jig we came out with this year. It's actually about the same jig I used at Amistad last year. It's just slightly modified with slightly better hook, and we've got the Mega Custom Signature eyes on it. I'm going to go over a few points about what I like about this jig so much and why I have a lot of confidence using it. Probably the main fact is just that it's a good way to cover deep water efficiently. The design of this football jig, you know, when you're rolling it over trees and rocks, it always has got a rocking action on it, so every time you pull on that jig, it's gonna lift the back end up with this hook design on it, if you can see that. And what I typically like to fish it on is, you know, brush piles and deep rocks, and anywhere you've got, you know, 20 to 30 foot of water. If you've got fish that are schooled out there, it's just a jig is always a good way to catch big fish, and lots of them. And a few things I like. I don't like to change it too much out of the package. You know, there's times if you're on, maybe the fish are a little finicky or it's a tough bite, I'll take and, you know, the skirt's a little bit long. This living rubber is about what I use 95% of the time. I'll take and trim it just a little bit to, you know, just take about a ½ inch off that skirt, and just it changes the profile on it a little bit. And you know, sometimes when they see 40 big jigs coming by, you have a jig that's got a little more compact profile, they'll tend to key in on that a little bit. And one thing I don't do a whole lot of is trim that weed guard. I know a lot of guys do, but on this jig particularly, you know, it's a finer weed guard, so you can see how lightly I'm pressing on that. It will get stuck a little more if you trim it too much. So I've never had a problem losing fish or missing fish due to leaving the weed guard like it is. So, and this color here, this is the, I don't know why I call it the Ozark Special. That's it's about my bread and butter color. These two colors right here, this is the Table Rock Special. It's the brown living rubber, and you know, it's got the green tinsel and the purple tinsel in it. That's primarily what I use. Get into a little more stained water, I'll go to this. This is the Cumberland Special, and this is the Praying Mantis color. It just, you know, it's the typical 2 to 4 foot of visibility. Those are my two primary colors for that. And basically keeping the browns and the greens is about, you know, you keep it simple, seem to work a little better. And my #1 bait I like to put on this jig is a hula grub. This is a Gary Yamamoto hula grub, 5-inch. And I leave the skirt right on it. And one thing with these grubs, you want to make sure if you hold it like this and it lays like that, that's the way you want it on the hook. Because if you see how it curls up like this, then the ends will get tangled together when it's like that. That's just a little trick Ben taught me. So I'll go ahead and string it on there. That's another good thing about this hook. You can put your trailer all the way on there and it's still got a lot of room. You know, it's never going to get wadded up on there, and you don't lose a lot of fish with this hook, just the way the whole design of the jig is. And I'll go ahead and tie this on my rod here and show you the setup I like to use for throwing this jig. And get it through there. There we go. This, I believe, is called the San Diego knot. It's just a knot that a lot of the guys on the tour tie, and they happened to show it to me, and oops. Seems to work a little better than a Palomar knot. If I can tie it here. No problems. There we go. So what you do is you run your loop through there. You take your tag in, run it back. I use my finger here. You want to try not to have a twist in it. Keep this straight, and I'll wrap it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 or 7 times. And you've got your loop up here, and you run your tag in back through that loop. Draw it tight and wet it just a little bit. What that does is it keeps your line, you never have line crossing over line like a Palomar knot, so every time you pull on it, the only line it's pulling on is right on the eye of the hook. So you'll never have line crossing over. And with fluorocarbon, it's pretty important because it's a lot more, it's stiffer and a little more brittle as to compared to mono, where it'll flex a little bit when it pulls on itself. So it's just a good knot to tie with fluorocarbon. And that's pretty much the setup. It's pretty simple, but that's the setup I use right there 90% of the time when I'm fishing deep water. And as far as rods go with this setup, I use all St. Croix rods, and this is about the rod I use for everything, but this works real good for a football jig for me. I like a fast tip like this. That way, like you can feel if you're coming across rocks or brush piles, it loads up a little bit, and that's 9% of the time you get your bites is when you're pulling through that sweet spot out there. So if you got about 3 feet of tip that loads up like that really before the fish can even feel you, and it's got, from this eye down, it's got enough backbone where it's like Amistad, I was catching 7 to 10 pounders where it didn't really have a problem with them. So that's my main setup there. And as far as what I like to look for in throwing a football jig, is basically anything offshore. Not even offshore, I'll just throw it on rock, wood, whenever you find a little different, just about anything you could think of, really. I mean, a jig works just about everywhere. And most of the time, if I'm not using a football jig, I'll be using one of these little guys here. This is just the regular Omega tackle jig here. This is a little more scaled down version, but it's got the head on it to come through brush a little better. You can flip this one into brush and timber, and you can also fish around rocks and docks. And that's got a little more of a finesse style skirt on it with the collar. And there again, that's the Table Rock Special. If you look at my jigs, that's pretty much all of them are this color or the Ozark Special. As far as this jig, I'll put that same grub on it, but I'll usually pull the skirt off of it. And it gives the fish just a little different look at, that's really what it's all about, is just giving them a different look all the time, and I'll change the skirts on them a little bit and trim it up, and sometimes pull a few strands out. But primarily, I'm not real big on changing my jigs too much. I'll leave them about the same as what they always are, pretty much straight out of the package. So